everyone, and welcome to New Trials of Podcast. I'm Preya.
And I'm Melanie.
The New Trials of Captor Sakura, Syaoran, and Friends is a popular ongoing fanfic by Wishluv, and it's based off of Clan's Captor Sakura. In each episode, we'll do a deep dive of a new chapter. Let's get into it. Okay, let's kick things off with our Alliance of the Stars segment.
All right, so this is also another one that we forgot to mention. This was messaged to us back when we did chapter 16 in the audiobook version. And it is by, the first time I said her name, I believe I mispronounced it. And so she does tell me how to pronounce it in this sweet message. I don't know what it is with me and not pronouncing names correctly. But anyways, she said, thanks for the shout out on the podcast. Such a sweet treat. It's pronounced Shero Bero. A nickname from high school. Haha, my real name is Sherry. Melanie, I love the new chapter. It felt very suspenseful. I know it's a lot of work, particularly a long chapter such as this. Really appreciate your dedication. My favorite voice of yours is Timeo's. It always gets me laughing. On the podcast, I had the same thought as Preya about the article Syaoran was writing. Like, dang, Wish-chan, it's so impressive at that age already. Flashback to the past with faxes, although I don't even know if I'd seen a cell phone in 2000. I remember even in 2004 getting to sit in a fancy car that had a corded phone in it.
Thanks for your message. And I got one too that's also dated a bit way back. So even though most of the activity takes place on Facebook, we do have a groups IO, and I would just periodically check in to see if there's any activity. So I went on today and I saw a message from Messel that she posted on February 20th announcing our Q&A. And then she had some lovely things to say about our podcast. I'm a little behind on the podcast episodes, but check them out if you can. It's been a lovely listen and has really ignited my love of New Trials again after being away / kind of hovering in the fandom for a while.
Oh, that's so sweet. I just love when we get these messages. Like, they really just make me so happy.
Okay, so before we get into this chapter, my question for you is, what are some of your most memorable photo shoots?
So I thought about it. And so the one I think that sticks out most for me is it's kind of a two-parter, sort of, because I was doing a runway show. And during the runway show, we were each Egyptian characters, was like the whole thing. And I was the Egyptian character of the Sphinx. And so this particular thing they made for me, it was this huge thing that kind of wrapped around my head and draped across my shoulders. And it was really heavy. It was like 10 pounds. And they specifically made it just for me. So it really was a couture piece. But even though it was specifically made just for me, it wouldn't stay on me well enough as I walked. And they didn't want me to like hold it down with my hands when I walked, because I didn't want to either, because I didn't want to like cover the piece I was wearing. So the only solution we could think to do in order to keep this thing on me was to tie like this transparent rope from here to here. And so I had this rope basically going across my neck. And so while I wasn't walking, I had to hold the rope away from my neck so I wouldn't like start to choke. But then when I had to walk down the runway, I just had to let the rope go and just walk. And so the whole time during my pictures, like literally this rope is like all 10 pounds is like weighing it on my neck. And I'm trying not to like show the fact that it's like hurting and I can't breathe, but I just walked. In the pictures, you can't even tell. I have to toot my own horn. I still look super professional. You would never know. Thankfully, we were all barefoot in that show, that literally never happens. So at least I didn't have to also focus on high heels and all of that. All I had to focus was just rope pushing on my neck. So that was the runway portion of the show. And then usually it kind of depends. They brought me back a couple weeks later to do the actual photo shoot part for the piece. And so then on that day, and photo shoots are anywhere between 8 to 12 hour days, depending. It's a long day. And even though I wasn't wearing the piece the whole day, I had to have it on most of the time because it was such a pain in the butt to get it on me, get it off of me. And so literally for 8 to 12 hours that day, I had to walk around with this huge 10-pound thing on my shoulders and having to hold this rope away from my neck. And and then in the pictures, they Photoshop it out so you can't even see it. So it just looks like it's sitting on me. But I think that's my most memorable one just because it was probably the most physically tasking one I ever had to do.
You're basically describing Sakura's experience with the rope when she was attacked in music
Basically.
class.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Because it was an invisible rope and she had to pretend that she wasn't being affected.
Oh, that's so true. I don't know why I didn't put that together when we read that scene.
So I can actually answer this question too. So when I was
Ooh.
9, my dad's customer, he was a photographer, and he was looking for a little girl to model for an advertisement with his son. So my dad suggested that I can do it. And I can vaguely remember getting my hair styled and then sprayed down like crazy to lock it into place. And I actually felt like what Sakura was feeling in this chapter when Mike said, "Oh, just go for the natural look." And the makeup artist is like, "I know what I'm doing." And yeah, so then I was dressed as a doctor, and then this boy, he was my patient. And I also remember the stethoscope that I used for the shoot was really hurting my ears a lot. But I'm going to send you a picture, and then you can post it on the IG. I do have a picture
Yeah.
of me at the mall standing next to my it was like an advertisement for St. Valentine's Day. That's why like heartbeat kind of theme. So I can definitely share that with the listeners.
Ah, yes. And I have a picture of me on the runway and in the finished product picture too, so you guys can see the 10-pound thing I'm wearing on my shoulders. Yay, little baby Preya.
Okay, today we're going to be discussing Chapter 20, Picture the Past. This chapter was released during the winter of 2001. It's a whopping 12,993 words, and I believe this is our longest chapter so far in Arc 1. Everyone's in the 8th grade, and not only is it January, but it's the end of winter vacation. So, time to move on to the summary. For the photo shoot at the Empire State Building, Syaoran and Sakura were dressed in white for an angelic theme. While posing for the shot, Syaoran saw an illusion and fell down the building after reacting to it. Sakura, reminded of her dream several months back, went after him. Because Ariel set the illusion, he gave Syaoran wings to save himself, who then caught Sakura. She used Fly after Syaoran teased her about dropping her. They got back on top of the building, and Mike was overjoyed with the pictures, especially the one where they're facing each other with their wings still on, not caring for explanations. The next set of pictures were taken at Central Park, where the two of them got in a snowball fight that Miho instigated. On their last day, during lunch, Syaoran was going to tell Sakura something until all of their friends came to the restaurant, to Syaoran's annoyance. That night was the dinner party for viewing Tomoyo's movie. Mike came to them with the photos, and when Miho made a rude comment about Nadeshiko, Sakura had enough with the girl's behavior and lost her temper. Miho ran in tears. Miho ran out in tears. Ariel explained Miho's past by stating that she went from being happy to having a broken family after her father was killed, her mother went ill, and her older brother ran away. She burnt her house before Kao and Ariel took her under their wing and taught them magic. When Ariel told her that Miho's mom hated Nadeshiko, Sakura went to Shing for answers, and she found Syaoran looking for clues through the pictures. She learned from Shing that Miho's mom's bitterest feelings towards Nadeshiko was because she wanted Ryuren. Going back, Sakura and Syaoran got stranded by a cab driver who kicked them out and stole their money. Syaoran asked her why she feared him, and finally posed the question that he wanted to ask. What was he to her? Too confused with her feelings, Sakura asked coolly if it mattered. Though he said it didn't, He then asked why she went after him on the roof. She told him about the dream. When he said, "The deal is I let Sakura cut him off unknowingly." They talked about Miho and how the sickness plaguing Miho's mom was the same that took Ryurin and Nadeshiko's lives away from them. Syaoran dropped the knife, and when Sakura picked it up, she saw Syaoran's memory of his father giving it to him, and that annoyed him even though she couldn't help it. They ended up finding their way back to the hotel. The group said goodbye to Ariel and Miho at the airport. Miho was slowly starting to warm up towards Sakura. Leaving for Japan, Sakura couldn't help but think that she forgot something. Hiro-chan was in a fit when he was left behind.
Oh, such a good chapter.
So when you read about the fire burning higher over the angry girl's head, did you connect that with Miho's story when you first reread the chapter for the podcast audiobook?
No, I assumed it was Sakura being really mad.
See, my instinct was that Erica was the angry girl, but thanks to my memory about fan art, I realized it was Miho's story because a while back I drew an MS Paint fan art of the Takana house, and then when I was doing the 100 themes challenge, there was a prompt that said burning, so I asked Sebastian if he could just like draw a lot of flames and smoke, and I remembered that fan art, and then I connected, oh, Miho is the angry girl.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's never occurred to me. Because in anime, when they get mad, it's always like, fire comes or smoke comes out of their ears, or they get like fire on their head. So I just thought it was like a cutesy little anime moment for Sakura being mad.
Oh, yeah, no, it's like, because I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember. First of all, I don't remember this at all because it's been so long. I'm like, what does this allude to? Sort of like at the end of the chapter, but we'll talk about that when we get there.
That's so funny.
Okay, so much for Sakura and Sharon reconciling in the last chapter. I didn't think they would be that opposed to working with each other.
The only thing I can think of is it's mostly the embarrassment factor more than anything. Because I can say it's definitely easier modeling with someone you don't know rather than modeling with someone you do know. Because even though these two are very much green to the whole modeling thing, you do kind of have to take on a persona of some sort when you model, especially this like kind of high fashion advertisement type thing. So that's the only thing I can sort of relate with them at this moment is it is so awkward to model with someone that you know. It really is. Like you would think the opposite. You would think knowing someone would make it really comfortable, all this stuff like, but no, it really doesn't, especially if you're doing something like intimate, like a perfume ad, because most perfume ads are pretty intimate. So that's kind of where I think is just the embarrassment factor.
Yeah, they were trying to get out of it, but Tomoyo and Miho tells SNS that Eric and Aaron could take their place, and then they stopped complaining. And this was Ariel's action plan number 8. With the right words, they are so gullible.
Indeed.
So our first shoot location was the Empire State Building, and yeah, there's no way that could have happened in real life. But especially since it was Tomoyo who thought of it on a whim, and Mike's like, yeah, that's a great idea.
Oh, I don't even know where to begin. um where should I start? So yeah, the Empire State Building, in order to even, you can't even really go up to the very top of the building. Like even the observation deck is not the tip top of the building. And the observation deck is very much fenced in. If you've ever seen Sleepless in Seattle or Gossip Girl, like you will know, like there's no possible way to get over that thing. And the lighting isn't good up there, which also wouldn't be good photo shoot wise. But I mean, who knows? Maybe Tomeo has connections, maybe Mike has connections and they, worked it out. We can think of it like that, I guess. And then also, so when you do photo shoots, it's never really just you and the photographer ever. There's usually at least 10 other people in that room, especially for a big advertisement like this one. There would be at least 10 other people. There's usually like a lighting director, then the photographer, then you have the people that actually own the perfume brand that you're doing things for. Usually there's like two representatives from the company are there. There's the makeup artist, because especially with the wind up there, you have to retouch your lip gloss, you have to retouch your hair. So usually there's a hairstylist up there. So that's 6 people already. Not to mention you have the people that are just called runners. Like they run back and forth just fixing things. And then you also have like the crew that does the other stuff on the sides. Like they move the sandbags. They're in charge of moving the lights up above. Or you have the people that are the representatives of the building that you're shooting in are usually there too. Or if they're not there, it's security. You have security there with you. And I would imagine at the Empire State Building, you would have security out the wazoo. But I know I'm being super harsh, guys, and I'm trying not to be, because I know Wish Chan was what, 12 at this, no,
I don't
13,
know. She's
13,
probably
14,
14 at this
14.
point. Or, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, a normal 14-year-old wouldn't know this. And so, but I'm just, just for communication's sake of the podcast and just to put my 2 cents in as a model, this type of scenario would never happen in the real fashion world.
So during that scene, we get another bet when Sakura says first one to mess up buys the meals for the other one on the trip. And I know that you mentioned that when they were fighting the Twister, that kicked off the habit of making bets. So it's a really nice running thread.
Super cute.
Syaoran gets distracted with what he thinks is a dark force, takes tumble at the building. I love how we're brought back to the prologue with Sakura remembering her dream of Syaoran falling off the cliff, because I actually forgot that she remembered that in this chapter.
Yeah, same. And I know we had a conversation of like, does this cliff scene come back? I can't remember. Does this ever come back? So I guess it sort of does, maybe in this finale of arc 1.
Yeah, because I know it's like more obvious when they get to the actual mountains, but I completely forgot that that played out this way. So this leads us into aerial action plan number 9. They would go to any extent for each other, whether practical or not.
I would say pretty impractical. Just, I mean, talk about fearless, just jumping off with not even taking out the fly or float card first or anything, just jumping.
What would have been come in real handy. But I do love that Ariel gives Syaoran wings and he's dressed in white. Ugh, great image.
Oh my gosh. Like, even though the whole scenario is absolutely crazy, but it just makes the most beautiful mental picture in your head. And it's just such a sweet moment, especially when he's like clutching onto her, that he pretends to drop her. I just think that's so cute. I just love this scene to death. And I'm happy we have an amazing fan art for it that we will talk about later.
Miho opens up to Ariel on why she has a crush on Syaoran, and we learned that he saved her during the card capturing days, and I forgot about that scene too.
You know, I was starting, because when I re-watched the card captor or the CCS last summer, I was kind of just on the lookout to see if there was a character that maybe Wish Chan pinpointed, but I don't think there was. The only one I could think of was the little girl on the float, I think, in the original. But yeah, anyway.
That was like a little cute mention. So the second shoot location was at Central Park. But I'm sure that Miho dumping the buckets of slush on Syaoran and Sakura's head, just to make them like that would just make them awful subjects for photographs.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me think of 2 drenched cats.
Yeah, all I could think of, because usually winter scenes is actually usually filmed in the opposite season of what you think it is. So it's really unusual for them to be filming like I would assume they're doing an advertisement for like their parkas or something they're wearing, is what I would assume.
Sure.
And so technically, for a winter parka, you actually do that shoot in like the late spring, actually, believe it or not, late spring, beginning of summer. So like you're sweating alive in this parka coat. And then usually they put all this fake snow and stuff around you. So usually you shoot off season, whereas bikini season is usually shot in the winter time. So it's like the opposite of, because it takes like a couple different seasons in order for things to come out and do what it's supposed to do and stuff.
Oh
So
yeah, that's so
anyway,
true. So because especially at the like towards the end of the chapter when Mike is like flashing the pictures, I'm like, it doesn't take the turnaround is not that fast.
no, yeah. And well, I was trying to think even their perfume ad to
Yeah.
come out in Valentine's Day, I guess it could if you really expedited the process, but technically if you want something to come out in February, typically you're shooting for that in like October, no, November at the latest. But again, maybe Mike just has his connections. Maybe he's talented enough and the shoot was cool enough. Maybe they didn't have to do a whole lot to it, so maybe it was able to be expedited.
Well, the slush definitely loosened them up, and they even got their revenge on Miho. So they apologized to Mike, which opened the door to Ariel's action plan number 10. They are more similar than they would like to admit.
And I'm sorry. I feel like everyone's going to be so annoyed with me on this episode. I'm really sorry, guys. But also for Miho just to completely just photobomb their photo shoot. So number one, she's a minor, so they would have had to get adult permission to even take pictures of her. And number two, she wasn't even in contract. So all the pictures that they use during those times where she's in the frame, they can't use because one, she's a minor, and two, she wasn't in contract. So anyways.
Uh, Wish Chen never knew that an actual model was going to be picking apart the chapter. New Trials, the podcast.
I bet all our listeners are, thank God Sakura doesn't eventually start modeling till arc 4, so Melanie will shut up.
No. But it's really interesting because it's like, yeah, we laugh about it now, but when we fast forward to arc 4 with the fashion show, it's like you literally told Wish Chan, it's like, wow, you got a really good grasp on this. So we know
Yeah.
we know it only gets bigger and better from here.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I was going to comment that too, because there's a couple of photo shoots that Sakura does in arc 4 too, that you can tell that Wish Chan actually knows what happens with the shoot now. And so, yeah, she definitely gets better, but just for sake of podcasting. Yeah. Anyway, don't be
We're
too
having
annoyed with
fun.
me.
So the gang watches Phantom of the Opera. Now, do you ship Christine with the Phantom or Raoul?
Raul,
Same girl.
Phantom is like red flag central toxic boy.
Yeah. It's like when Maylin was crying, which she did a really good job of crying Maylin, by the way. I'm like, Maylin, no, Raoul is her one true love. She'll be way happier with him.
Like, as I've discussed before, I swear Wish Chan wrote this fan fiction for me sometimes because Phantom of the Opera is my favorite Broadway show. And so when I first read this, because it was hinted at her author's note last chapter. And then when I read this and there was like, and then it also comes back later, which we'll find out in arc 2. But I just absolutely love that there's a Phantom of the Opera reference. But yeah, Phantom, he's toxic. He gaslights her. He literally emotionally and he emotionally abuses her. He manipulates her. Like, no. Raul, all the way. Like, Raul isn't perfect. He has his own stuff that we could talk about, but no.
From the top of your head, can you remember how many musicals you've seen?
Oh man. Let's see. I've seen at least 10 or 12, probably. How about you?
Okay, so I wrote it down.
Oh,
Wicked,
shoot.
Lion King, Billy Elliot, Book of Mormon, Little Night Music. I saw those in New York. And in
Hmm.
Montreal, I saw Shrek and I saw Chicago.
Oh, I auditioned for Shrek and I was really sad I didn't get
Oh,
it. I even did my best Cameron Diaz impression and they're like,
oh. Uh, So we're on our last day in New York, and Sakura and Sharon's friend makes them go shopping for their parents together. And I love that we get a peek of Sharon's love for archaeology.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so cute.
Yeah. And then we get Sharon buying Sakura an Italian lunch since he lost the bet, since he was the one who fell off the roof first. And that's when the gang barged in before the conversation could really get interesting.
I have a feeling that Wish-chan's favorite food is Italian because it seems like anytime Sharon and Sakura go out for dinner, it's usually always Italian food.
Yeah, and the Sienne is as an Italian restaurant, if I'm not mistaken.
I always assumed it was French.
Oh
Is
no, it's
that not
French. It's French. It's definitely French. Yes.
okay?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes,
I was
yes,
like, my
yes.
French isn't great, but I think that's the swan.
It is the swan. It is the swan. But for some reason I was like imagining them being like Italian food there. But yes, it is French. Okay, so at the young director's party, Tomoyo gets her award. I really like the cute cheering sound effects in the audiobook. And so Mike Khan's father was at the party. He doesn't get name dropped, but later on we're going to know that his name is Mark. And the reason we know this is because there's a flashback in New Trials where he was the first photographer to take pictures of Nadeshiko and Riren.
Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
And this is the scene where Miho says some really hurtful things about Nadeshiko, and our girl snaps. And I don't blame her. And I'm glad we're at the point of the story where we finally learn about Miho's background.
Yeah, I don't blame Sakura at all. And just someone just coming after her mom like that, and especially they're still like strangers at this point. Like I would have snapped too. Like I would have definitely put Miho in her place. And Sakura is a much bigger person than me that she sort of felt bad afterwards. Like even though we learn Miho's backstory, I will be completely honest, guys. I probably a big part of me would probably still be like,
Girls out of
I don't
line.
take back what I say. Yeah.
Yeah, so when she got mad at Sakura for having a father and a brother and a mother who loved her even while she was still alive, and friends, it gives us a peek of what she doesn't have. And Ariel's story was already sad, but the way that you were voicing little Miho losing everything, ugh, downright heartbreaking.
Aw. Yeah, those adults talking about her too, just like right in front of her and stuff is just it's just heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and Miara, who's like completely forgetting who she was. It's like, it makes sense why Miho went the deep end, and who knows what would happen if Kaho wasn't there for her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we learned that Miara was in love with Ryoren and that she hated Nadeshiko very much. But I think this is more history being misrepresented than actual truth, because in the flashbacks we do see Miara working with Nadeshiko and Ryoren. And I think the same goes with Miara blaming Nadeshiko for getting sick. I think it could be like the heat of the moment kind of thing, like when pregnant women are giving birth and they're like say, "You did this to me" to their partners. So I think this is just history being misremembered, and hopefully what's being recorded isn't exactly what we saw in the past, because it would be really sad because they had quite a friendship, the four of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone processes grief differently. And, you know, even though Miara knew the responsibility of taking on the sickness, what that would mean, but, she's allowed to process that feeling of grief of knowing she has this illness within herself. And maybe that's just how she processed it was just to have her feelings be that way. So, I mean, the whole thing is just all of it is just so sad and frustrating. But yeah.
And then just like that, this scene connected with Shing.
I know. And literally, he looks at a picture of her and he's like, oh, I remember her being really attractive. How
Yeah,
did we not put the puzzle pieces together?
that's because her dad was presumed dead, and the dead don't come
Uh,
back. You know, the dead doesn't. They don't come back to life.
Wish Chad, you sneaky, sneaky, sneaky.
Yeah. So yes, we have Shing gushing about how pretty Miara was, and he tells Sakura and Tron just a bit more of the past. So our couple gets stranded in New York, and Sharon finally confronts Sakura about how she thought he was a stalker. And I really hate that Sharon is demanding her to tell him what he means to her. And the first thing she goes to think about is his stupid, silly childhood memories conversation. So it's like, no wonder.
He only has himself to blame. And like I really don't like that scene. Like I do and I don't. I love that it's a Sakura and a Syaoran scene in its essence, but it really frustrates me to no end because he's dug his own grave at this point. So and so this brings me to my next topic. And when he goes, do you think he was
Yes.
going to say, I lied? I love you?
Oh, you know what? I actually always interpreted that as I like you, but now I think he's saying I lied.
That's what I think. I think he was trying to tell her, I lied when I said that all those memories were silly childhood memories. I lied when I said I didn't like you anymore. I think he was trying to confess to her that he lied back
You
in the
know,
winter.
you're making me see this scene in a whole new light. Because I knew he wasn't gonna say I love you, but
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it's oh like because I did that when I was in grade 8. I liked a guy, but I wasn't able to say it, and then the only thing I was able to come out was I like. So that's what I couldn't say it. I tried. I was I like. So when I see that, I was like, oh, obviously it's like, but you know what? I'm on team lie.
That's the cutest thing I've ever heard.
So, but they do close with a nice moment of laughing about being out so late and making fun of of her brother. They talk about Miho and the plague, and Sharon explained to Sakura the cause of Nadeshiko's death. And on one hand, I was really surprised that she didn't know, but on the other hand, who could have told her?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things she doesn't know about her mom, and maybe she just never thought to ask. Like she just knew her mom died because she was sick, but maybe that's just how it's always been described to her as mom is sick. She didn't know that mom had this. But yeah, I guess you're correct because Fujata wouldn't know about the dark vein in her. Maybe she would have told Toya, but maybe Toya thought Sakura was still too young to know and to process that. So yeah, I guess you're correct. I guess there wouldn't really be anyone to tell her.
And then you have Sharon, who comes from a magical family, so they can be very upfront about like the dark force that took away his
Mm-hmm.
father, and that's like common knowledge for him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Speaking of his father, we have a super cute flashback. I'm sorry, Riren, I would not give a toddler a pocket knife.
Yes, as a mom to a 3-year-old, I was like, what are you doing? Even though Wishian says it's perfectly safe because the thing doesn't come off and blah, blah, blah. But still, as a mom, I was like, mm. Although I'm sure little baby Sharon was still picking up a sword at this age too, though. So.
Pretty much. So it's not really explained how Sakura could look into Sharon's mind, but this does foreshadow like the mind reading that we're going to get later on in the series.
Yes. And I think it's her way of, because I think this has happened before. I think it's her way of using the past card without really needing to pull out the past card. It's
Return.
just kind of, yeah, return. Thank you. It's her way of tapping into the return card without needing to actually pull out and use the return card.
Yeah, it makes sense. So SNS, they don't reorient themselves until they get to Central Park. And this leads to Aerial Action Plan number 11. They'll always survive in the end. But you'd think there should be a card for like direction or location.
Or, I mean, well, I don't know. For some reason in my head, I was thinking this party was at the Metropolitan Museum, but I don't think it was. Because to me, I was like, they could just tell the cab driver they're at the Metropolitan, but
No, but remember, like the cab driver stole their money and kicked them out of the cab, so they didn't have money for
oh,
another cab.
oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least the Plaza Hotel is super easy to find off of Central Park. So at least they were right on that way.
So they say their goodbyes to Ariel at the airport. There's a cute Ariel and Tomoyo scene where Ariel action plan number 12 is Tomoyo can take over in the meantime. And then there's another mention of how Tomoyo always knew Ariel's thoughts.
Sorry, did you pick up on the Erika, Eron, and Iro moment of like
Yes.
Iro staring them down? I think
Yes.
he knows. He knows, and he just chose not to say anything yet.
Ariel is definitely somebody who will know all the pieces of the puzzles, but he's very picky about what he divulges. Like he keeps
Hmm.
cards close to his chest. That's like basically to cause chaos and havoc and just like for the fun of it. But yes, and like Ariel won't be doing Sakura any favors if he's like neon pointing sign to the twins saying these are your enemies. Like this is stuff that she needs to figure out on her own.
Yeah. Well, I think at this point the veil card is still in effect too.
Yeah.
So even if he did mention it, it might have been something where he would say like it's the twins, but then when she would hear him say it, it'd be like he said something completely different because of the veil card or something too.
That's true. Okay, so we're winding down. Sakura leaving Kiro and New York was pretty funny. And this chapter ends with Nadeshiko running around calling for Ryuren with glass shattering around her. Now, I can't recall, do we ever revisit this moment in New Trials? I think our memory might be too
Oh,
fuzzy. Oh,
no, it's when the chandelier crashes when they're doing Phantom of the Opera and he saved her. It's when the Phantom first
ah,
comes about in Arc 2.
that's great. That's great.
Yep.
Okay, I'm glad because I'm like, I feel like I should know this, and I don't think it's dropped, but I don't remember. But now that you mention it, well, the chandelier dropping, and this was the chapter where they talked about Phantom, so it totally makes sense. Well, just a
Yep.
little bit of what to come because Nadeshiko's uh cast, like arc, they do Phantom of the Opera as their musical. So
Yes. Yes. And the picture they found in this chapter is alluding to that. Like they think maybe their parents got married, maybe, right? That's this chapter. I'm pretty sure they find it at Sheen's mansion. So
yes.
yes, we will. I'm excited to talk about that one. Arc 2 is so much fun. I'm so excited to get going on it.
And that concludes Arc 1. For the Dark Force corner, Sakura uses the fly when they were at the Empire State Building, and then she uses the big card on a handkerchief to spread on a bench before she and Syaoran sat down. We get a mention of the plague when Sakura was pinning Miara's anger on the Dark Ones rather than on her mother. So in that quote, she was like, "Oh, it's a plague of some kind," and that's just foreshadowing for the plague to come in Arc 3.
Hmm. Indeed.
For the fan art spotlight, so since this chapter is extra long and special, it's only fitting to highlight two fan arts. The first one is from Chaspa, aka Varsha, who shared this with the Facebook group back in April 2012. It's a stunning piece of SNS with their wings as they fall off the building, and I love the way that Sakura's dress is just billowing in the wind.
It's beautiful. This is one of my top favorite fan arts. And Priya, you actually don't know this, but for the longest time, this was my lock screen on my cell phone. I loved it so much. And oh, I just think it's beautiful. And I can't even describe it in enough words to tell you how beautiful this artwork is. It's so pretty.
We're really lucky because she's an artist by trade, like in real life. So the fact that she took the time to make this fan art for this fandom, we're very lucky.
Oh, it's gorgeous, so pretty.
Now, the second fan art is by Asume, aka Maria, where she recreated Shing's painting of little Sakura tying a ribbon on little Syaoran's sword. Now, she actually posted this back in March 2005, so it's definitely a hidden gem in the fandom.
And it's so cute. I just love them. She captured their like young toddler energy so well. It's so cute.
Like I had to reread New Trials to remember, like when I was like putting fan arts together, and then I came across this one. I just couldn't remember where it was from, and it was only after rereading chapter 20 that I'm like, oh, this is Jing's painting, but it's definitely not one you would expect.
Oh, it's so cute. I love it.
Okay, time for the author's notes.
Okay. Got our first kind of long one, guys. So get excited. So it is Wish-chan, finally over with the New York saga. I can't wait to get on with the show. You know, everything in Clamp's plot is significant, even the most unimportant detail. In some ways, this might have been a pointless chapter with very random, seemingly unimportant details. I don't know. You can decide in the far off future. Hee hee. We all know that SNS's modeling contract would go fine, or as fine as I would allow it to get. Mike Kant's funky, and Sheen appeared again. Can you imagine Clamp's work being up in an art museum? Starry eyes. We'd all love it, nay? So part of Miho's mystery is cleared. Still hate her? I still think that Iro is the most powerful magician. The SNS are catching up. Don't you wonder what the results of Iro and Sharon's duel would have been if Sakura didn't interrupt? How like Iro to cause a problem and then solve it out himself. Poor SNS, dumped in the middle of Manhattan by a taxi driver. It was always one of my fears. Gee, wonder what Sharon's secret is. The mystery of the knife was solved, however, but there are still many questions left. What really was between N and R, if anyone's wondering? When SNS turned up in the hotel room at 2 in the morning, Toya beat up Syaoran. Or was it the other way around? Hee hee. Anyway, there was hot fire. Crack, 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 crack. Oh, and Sakura never heard the end of it once she got back to Japan for leaving Kiro-chan. Can you really call yourself a card mistress? How can you forget me? You dare to leave me the good night. Kiro there, speak As for Syaoran, his mother and sister loved the presents, scolded him for not finishing a single task, and they were awed by the money he earned. Oh my gosh, cute little bro is a model now. And the elders assigned more things to do in a fax of more than 200 pages. And you can say, if this was on TV, the first season has ended, and the more intriguing second season arc, whatever, is about to launch.
Look, she's not wrong. She laid the groundwork for the plague. So, and it's like without us realizing it, she definitely put some major clues out about Xing's identity.
Yeah, Sheen, Plague, the whole Miho's lost brother. We'll kind of put the puzzle pieces with Kai making his official appearance in arc 2. All
Phantom of
sorts
the
of fun.
Opera slash musical.
Yes, yes. Yep, I'm sure there's probably more that we're just not thinking about at the moment. But yeah, she definitely left a
The
lot of
cliff scene.
breadcrumbs. Yeah, the cliff scene, my goodness. Oh, she's so sneaky.
And what's funny is that, like, in the last author's note, she's like, okay, the heavy stuff is done. I'm just gonna write fluff.
So good. So she must have lived in New York for a little while
Yes,
because she says it was like one of her fears.
yes, yes. There was a period of her life where she lived in New York. And it's
Mm.
like, I was too young to organize. Like, New York, Montreal, 8 hours. I think if I was older, I probably would have like definitely arranged myself to go down and meet her. But I think I was like, I think I was still in my early 20s at the time, so I haven't really spread my wings that far out. But yes, Wish Chan did live in New York during a period of time.
Oh, so cool. Who knows? We might have been there at like around the same time as each other. We never would have known.
So that includes arc one. Congratulations for finishing this with me.
Yay! We are planning on continuing, guys, so no worries there.
Yes, yes. So definitely send the support to Melanie because the chapters are just going to get longer.
Holy moly. Thank goodness I have Priya as a cheerleader because I told her how I've hit a snag on Blown Away Roses, so it's not completely finished, but even just the part I have right now is already an hour and a half. And my sweet little cheerleader Priya was like, but look, 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 these are all the word counts of the chapters you have coming up. It's not too bad.
No, no, it's not too bad. Yes, there are some monsters in the bunch, but it's not as bad as she thought it was.
So if I'm a little bit slower getting chapters out, guys, just bear with me. I promise we'll get through it eventually, but it might be a little bit slower now that we're heading into the more bulkier chapters.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's like we're both very committed to this project, and no matter how long it takes, we will see it through.
Yay! And we have the most exciting next couple episodes coming up.
Yes, so next week we're going to launch our Q&A, and we didn't get the answers yet, so it's hard to judge how many questions was Chan's going to answer, how long her answers are going to be. So based on what we get, we're going to debate on whether it's making a one-parter or a two-parter. And then after that, before we launch Arc 2, we're going to be doing a kind of a community show. So Melanie and I, we ask each other questions at the top of each podcast episode. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask the community those same questions. So everybody's going to have some fun answering as well. And after that, we're going to officially start Arc 2.
Woohoo! Look at us! I'm so excited. So who knows, maybe a little bit past Sakura's birthday, we'll be getting rolling, hopefully.
I think so. I think after Sakura's birthday, that's when we're going to be launching Arc 2. It's very exciting. Well, thanks for joining us. And you have been listening to New Trials the podcast, where it must rain for there to be a rainbow.
You've been listening to New Trials the podcast. Please be sure to check out the audiobook version of this fan fiction that you can find anywhere that you can find this podcast. Also, please be sure to check out the Facebook fan page for New Trials, where a big part of the discussions happen nowadays. Be sure to comment because you never know, you might be highlighted in our Alliance of the Stars section. Also, please be sure to email us at ntthepod@gmail.com if you also would like to be mentioned in the Alliance of the Stars. And be sure to stick around because we're going to hear from the one, the only, the elusive, the beautiful Wish Chan. And she's going to answer all our pressing questions. And Priya and I are probably going to be fangirling the whole time. We're going to try to hold it together. So be sure to stick around next time when we do the Q&A with Wish Chan.